Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the fascinating, somewhat paradoxical nature of our internal cellular environment. We often think of our bodies as this single, completely isolated biological system, right? Like a fortress guarding our own unique DNA against the outside world. But as we're going to see, the latest medical research paints a picture that is way more complex and honestly, incredibly beautiful.
I want you to think about this for a second. What if the cells of another human being are currently living inside your brain? No, seriously, let's dive into this because the science of how foreign cells and inflammation act within us is truly mind-bending. For decades, we've basically operated on the assumption that our immune system has one simple job: seek and destroy absolutely anything that isn't us. But the biological reality involves cellular hitchhikers, silenced alarms, and foreign DNA that actively shapes our health.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to cover immunity, autoimmunity, and cancer, then look at the IL-6 inflammation alarm, microchimerism, which is basically cellular hitchhiking, the double-edged biological sword, and finally, how all of this is unlocking new medical treatments. Let's get right into it.
All right, part 1, immunity, autoimmunity, and cancer.
Let's kick things off with a real head-scratcher of a medical mystery. Usually, we think of cancer as the immune system dropping the ball, right? It fails to catch the rogue cells. And autoimmunity, that's the immune system working overtime, attacking your own healthy tissue. They literally seem like exact opposites. But here's the crazy paradox we're seeing. Scientists are actually finding that those super aggressive, revolutionary therapies used to trigger the immune system to fight tumors, they could actually be harnessed to hit the reset button on autoimmune diseases. It's like, by pushing the immune system right to its absolute limit, we might actually figure out how to completely recalibrate it.
Moving on to part 2, the IL-6 inflammation alarm. To really wrap our heads around how our immune system can be our best friend and our worst enemy, we've got to look at our cellular alarm systems. And we're going to use cholangiocarcinoma, or CCA for short, as our prime example. Now, CCA is a highly lethal liver and bile duct cancer driven by inflammation. To put this into perspective, its 5-year survival rate is a dismal 5 to 17%. So, how does this rogue cancer manage to grow without the immune system just crushing it immediately? Well, the scary part is that CCA is basically a master hacker. It expertly manipulates our own biology. And the main system it hacks is the IL-6 pathway. Interleukin-6 is what we call a pleiotropic cytokine, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a really important protein that acts as a crucial cellular alarm system. Picture this: your body gets an infection or experiences stress, and boom, IL-6 sounds the alarm, setting off a whole cascade of inflammatory reactions downstream. Now, obviously, this pathway is absolutely essential for keeping us alive. But if this IL-6 alarm gets stuck in the on position, it can actually trigger tumors to grow and spread. So logically, you'd think a highly inflammatory cancer like CCA would just have these alarms absolutely blaring everywhere, right?
Well, look at this. The data is totally unexpected. When you compare the tumor microenvironment to the normal tissue around it, the IL-6 expression is actually lower in the tumor. Meanwhile, a related protein called STAT3 is higher. It completely flips our expectations on their head.
So what this basically means is that the cancer is actively suppressing these localized cellular alarms. Sure, if you take a blood test, the patient's overall serum levels of IL-6 might be sky high. But right there, locally, at ground zero where the tumor actually is, the cancer cells have literally cut the wires to the alarm system. They've created this stealth zone where the local immune system has no idea there's a massive threat.
And the fallout from silencing that alarm is huge. The data clearly shows that having low levels of IL-6 and its whole network of related receptor proteins actually inversely correlates with vascular invasion. In plain English, when the tumor successfully unplugs the alarm, the risk of the cancer invading your blood vessels and spreading just skyrockets. And that, unfortunately, leads straight to those really poor survival rates.
Okay, let's pivot to part 3, microchimerism, or what I like to call cellular hitchhikers.
We just saw how cancer manipulates our internal environment, but there is this other biological phenomenon that completely blows our whole concept of self right out of the water. We're talking about microchimerism. This is the presence of foreign cells, or DNA from an entirely different person, just living within your own tissues or floating in your bloodstream. How is that even possible? Well, mostly it comes from pregnancy. These cellular hitchhikers mean a mother actually carries her child's DNA inside her, and get this, every single one of us is carrying our mother's DNA inside us right now.
When you look at the timeline, it is just mind-blowing. This transfer doesn't take long at all. Actually, as early as 4 to 5 weeks into pregnancy, we can detect fetal cells in the maternal bloodstream. And for those whole 9 months, there's this busy two-way street of cells crossing back and forth between mother and fetus. But here's the real kicker. These cells don't just vanish after the baby is born. Decades, literally decades later, fetal cells are still perfectly surviving in the mother's tissues, and the mother's cells are persisting inside her adult child.
So how does this integration actually go down? First, the cells cross the placenta into the bloodstream. Simple enough. Second, these microchimeric cells migrate and actually set up camp in multiple tissues and organs. We're talking the skin, the liver, the spleen, and yeah, absolutely, the brain. And third, they aren't just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. These cells are essentially acting like stem cells. They differentiate into diverse functional forms, literally becoming active working parts of the host's body. Which brings us to part 4. The double-edged biological sword.
You're probably wondering, what on earth are these foreign cells doing and why hasn't our immune system completely wiped them out? Well, it's a serious double-edged sword. On one hand, hosting foreign DNA can trigger some severe autoimmune issues, things like systemic sclerosis or Hashimoto's. But on the flip side of that same coin, these foreign cells also offer some crazy protective benefits. We're seeing correlations with lower breast cancer risks, protection from thyroid cancer, and even active tissue repair.
These little biological souvenirs might actually hold the answer to a massive medical mystery. Why do autoimmune diseases affect women so much more often than men? The lingering presence of fetal cells creates a really complex immune landscape. But at the same time, it's like having an internal paramedic on standby. Research shows that when a mother has a tissue injury, these fetal cells will actually rush over and cluster at the injury site to help it heal. They might even be acting as security guards doing immune surveillance to actively hunt down malignant cancer cells. It is just a breathtaking balancing act.
And finally, part 5, unlocking new medical treatments.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does this web of hacked alarms and hitchhiking cells matter to us? Because by understanding these wild biological paradoxes, modern medicine is unlocking some absolute game changers. We're figuring out how to use heavy-duty cancer immunotherapies to finally give relief to autoimmune patients. We're looking at therapies that specifically target and unsilence that IL-6 pathway to stop lethal liver cancers dead in their tracks. We're even using those microchimeric cells to do totally safe, non-invasive prenatal testing from just a simple blood draw. And honestly, maybe the coolest part? Researchers are exploring how to use maternal stem cells for therapeutic tissue repair.
There's this quote from the research that really hits the nail on the head, pointing out that maternal stem cells could genuinely be used for therapeutic purposes in the future. I mean, think about that for a second. The foreign cells inside us might literally be the key to our own physical rejuvenation. The very cells you got from your mom before you were even born are right now, as we speak, working to keep your tissues healthy. It's a total blueprint for the future of regenerative medicine.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Are we truly just one individual? Or are we actually a walking mosaic of the people we've loved and the cells we've fought? Your body is an extraordinary, complex community. You're protected by alarms that can be hacked, and you are literally built in part from the cells of other people. It totally challenges our whole idea of what it means to be an individual, doesn't it? Thanks so much for exploring this incredible science with me today, and keep questioning the amazing biological world inside you.